introduction. He's a dear friend of mine. He has been here a couple of years more than I've been, Frank. I'm not gotten too high. Next week I'll finish 47 years of here at Stony Brook.
A baby. Just
Yes, baby. Compared to you. But Professor Myers has been really a pillar of our institution. He's a professor of political science, has been chair of this department, dean of international programs, and I had the pleasure of, and he was a big supporter of my initiative with the exchange, you probably forgot, with the University of Rome La Sapienza. You remember? Which for over 15 years went very well. So I really, truly appreciate your support throughout many years, and even for your presence here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you.
An introduction like that, I think I better sit down quickly before I change the impression. Mario's been, as he said, I supported him. When I was Dean of International Programs, he ran the Italian programs for the students, and it was the best program that we've ever had. That has consistently been the best organized, most successful program that we've had in all the countries that we ran. Absolutely true. And so
I agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely, there's no question about it. It was the absolutely best organized, best run program, and has been consistently, I think, the case. I'm very pleased to be asked to be chairman of this panel. I plan to do very little work because the reason you are here is to hear the papers of people who've actually gone to work and prepared papers. And so I'll just say that I think I agree that the topic is extremely important. Not simply that populism exists, which it does, of course, but that it gets such large votes now. It's amazing that it is become so popular, but especially since it seems to represent economic forces that are on the decline in many countries, and it's still attracting a great deal of popular support. It's a question, it's a kind of mystery that we want to pursue today. Our speakers, we have three speakers in this panel, this morning panel, who are going to talk about Italy, but about populism more generally. I will just mention their names now. Each one will be allowed to speak for about 20 minutes, and then we will have plenty of time, I think, for questions and comments from the floor, which I hope are abundant. And for our first speaker is going to be Luigi Troiani, who comes from the Angelicum Pontificia Università in Rome, the Thomas Aquinas section of that university, Pontifical University, and he will be speaking on Zeitgeist, the concept of Zeitgeist, National-Populisms in current international politics. Our second speaker, who I will introduce later, is going to be Giorgio Benvenuto, who's a political activist, actually. He's the former secretary of the Italian Socialist Party and the Italian National Labor Union, and he'll be speaking, and he's president of the Pietro Nenni Foundation. Those of us who study European politics for a long time have a special feeling for Pietro Nenni, I think. And he's going to speak on intermediate bodies as an antidote to populism. And finally, we have Federico Finkelstein from the New School of Social Research, originally from Argentina. And so he has his scope is not just Italian, not just European, but includes Latin America and the New World, as well as Europe. And he will be speaking on how to think about populism globally. I want to begin by turning the conversation over to Professor Luigi Troiani. Please come forward and take the podium here. Where's the there you are.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to talk today here about a topic which I used to deal with from years through articles and essays, and which I think it's very important for our times. And I have to say that the title Zeitgeist, Esprit du temps, Spirito del tempo, or Spirit of the time, was chosen by me because I really believe that this is one of the key questions of our times. I was set to have the liberty to speak 30 minutes. I received the official demand, so I will try to shorten as much as possible, but just excuse me if I wouldn't be a 20 minutes speaker. My approach to the argument, I teach international relations, so my approach is the approach of an internationalist in political studies. I know that other speakers will talk about national questions or economical questions or social even questions related to the argument, but this is my approach in international. Second, I prepared a long paper which is given to the Secretariat of the conference. Here I try to shorten as much as possible my ideas and make clear to you. Third, I have the honesty to tell you before my talk that I am not looking very sympathetic to the populist movements. This is my honesty vis-a-vis of the attendance, for at least 3 reasons. As I will try to demonstrate, there is an approach to politics which deals more with rationality, and there is another approach to politics which has more to see with passions. I'm not against passions, but history shows that humans, when they use passions more than rationality, make more mistakes than when they use rationality in their choices. And populist movement, we will go through the question, deals with passions, myths, and false ideas, and even false facts, or alternative facts, as you know, now present America is a new way of talking, or defining what is simply false. Another reason is that populists de facto are out of the liberal stream which built our societies and which gave democracy, wealth, and certain amount of equality among people. Now let's go to the paper I prepared. Some scholars, when starts talking about populism, make reference to French Revolution and what happened in France at a certain moment of European history. And they say, more or less bluntly, populists are sons of Robespierre and what came with Robespierre and the others during the French Revolution. The liberals, the rationalists, call it the way you like, are sons of Montesquieu with all the liberal buildings of our democracies we know. Well, this is, so nowadays we have a kind of a re-edition of old stuff which from time to time resurges and comes again to our attention. I don't have to mention Giovan Battista Vico theory, very known to all of us, and this is precisely what happens. Humans, from time to time, rediscover stuffs which would be better do not rediscover, but this is the way humans do. From the lesson of Giovan Battista Vico, I derive something which looks to me more interesting for reasons I will show later. At a certain moment, Vico wrote, Latinis verum et factum reciprocantur, seu ut scholarum vulgur loquitur convertuntur. This is the way he writes. we may translate more or less, according to Latin philosophers, the truth and the fact coincide, reciprocating one another their existence. Well, this is the first point I wish to underline with you. As a matter of fact, one of the factors of national populism at international level is the scarce dedication to the truth, the choice for falsehood, or what I just said, alternative facts, as it has been called at the White House in January, you know, what Kellyanne Conway said, and this famous phrase, which is useful to understand the way national populism use to contact the reality, to analyze the reality, or to show the reality. The problem of our democracies, the problem is that people vote. So the first element is, how do we define people? Who is people? Everyone will say, people. Who is people? Does it exist, the people? Or we know many peoples, poor, rich, educated, not educated, blue, white colors, urban, outskirts, country people. Probably sociological studies have learned, all of us, that people as a unity do not exist, because it differentiates. This is one of the points populism is not able to recognize. People is one. He needs a leader, probably a charismatic leader. He has to identify with the leader. There is a broad, unique interest of people, and this is interpreted by the leader. You believe the leader will take care of you, of your happiness, your future, don't worry. This is a false statement. The reality, the society, people express themselves through classes and all the differentiation, of course, ethnicity, Italians, Irish, Mexican, etc. All of them are a people, of course. But you have to interpret the differentiations, the richness of the society, which cannot be unified in one. Another question interesting for our analysis is that people we knew are not existing anymore. We were accustomed to look to people as a kind of, imagine, we use wording workers' aristocracy. This was a wording very typical in sociological studies to identify the workers who were taking conscience of themselves. They studied, they wished to be promoted, they wanted, to be owner of themselves. The change in education, the change in communication, TV, and unfortunately even certain use of social interneting, etc., transformed the people. The people nowadays, as we know, I cannot quote now the researchers because this is not in case during the debate later, but we are fully aware that the people we knew, our fathers, our ancestors, are no more existing. There is what has been defined in the liquid people, Bauman, and which I define here a kind of pulverized people, powdered people, which is ready to be, excuse me the expression, to be cheated, because it's no more conscious, have no more conscience of himself, of his role. And it gives himself to someone who convinces him of a certain truth, which are untruth, unfortunately, and it identifies an enemy, broad enemy, a meat of enemy, could be Europe. In Europe, the National-Populisms in Europe say EU is your enemy. What is EU? Then if we are going to see what is EU. EU is composed by the member states, so in case your state is your enemy, because all the choices come from free decision of the states. The same happened here. Washington, people are elected, they represent people, so what is Washington? You know, all those kind Muslims, who are the Muslims? There are different Muslims, of course. Do you understand? All those simplification allow people to follow the pipe, which is giving his music at that time without interpreting the reality. So that's why I talk about zeitgeist. So zeitgeist succeeds in nurturing political behaviors, and it comes, for instance, what came in November in the United States, that American people elect a kind of president who is unpopular, as a matter of fact, because when they make the poll, the 100 days of this president have been the most unpopular, as far as I read, of all the presidents before. So it happens that the honeymoon, which should be normal, you have been elected a few days ago, so at least love exists, at least at the beginning, otherwise, I mean, the marriage was a huge mistake. It doesn't come. And nowadays in UK, I was in UK a few days ago, just before flying here. In UK, the polls say that people do not want anymore quit Europe. 45 is to be back to Europe. 43 is keep the things as they are and try, look around and don't know what to do with that. And of course, we are free of interpreting polls. Maybe they are not true, maybe they are an alternative facts, but we take note of that responsibly. And don't forget that in the UK disappeared the National-Populist Party in practice. The UKIP, United Kingdom, independent, imagine independent party. I mean, UK is an independent country from ever. But this is the way to sell your product.
Sorry to interrupt. Just to put down my mic so they can hear better in
Okay,
the
good.
background.
Sorry. Next time I will make exercise to be kind with my voice. It's okay now? Huh? One objection is
Yes.
everyone can propose himself to be leader. You don't need special prerogatives to be a leader. Okay, so in order to drive, you need a license. In order to be professor, you need certain
Credentials.
you require certain studies and approval, etc. But in order to be president, even of the United States, the most responsible nation in the world, you don't need any qualification. Interesting. I gave a conference to a group. I used to teach years ago to the School of Military Army, top-level army in Italy. I did for a few years. I still have some friends. They invited me to talk about American election. I talked about prerogatives or qualities you should have. And some of them object. They say, no, Luigi, everyone can say, but you drive one starfighter. He drives thousands of, do you understand? Because in fact, he's driving all the military plane, all the army. And you need to be qualified, you need decades, and he needs nothing. Is that, I was not talking about Trump, he was not even elected. I mean, we are theorizing. So this is one of the problems. What kind of qualities need the ones who want to be a leader? The answer is, in our time, people decide. This is not matter of discussion. I object. People may decide on certain qualities. You may have a table of reference, then you go, and people decide who of the people having certain qualities may be elected or not. I know that it's risky what I'm saying, but please, it's risky also the other way around. By the way, had at our referendum a few months ago, the leader of the populist party, Movimento 5 Stelle, who said, people, dovete votare con lo stomaco. And I wrote an article for Vacara saying, we have the celiacracy, the stomach. Yeah, because this is the power of stomach. And Croce, when was looking to fascist in government, said that we had an onagrocrazia in Italian. Onager is donkey. And he said, that's the kind of government we have, the government of donkeys. And they say today we have someone or a party saying that we don't need intellect to choose, we need stomach, it's okay. I mean, well done, just take note of that. So you understand that I guess that there is a certain manipulation of intellect on that, which we have to take into account. By the way, let's understand why we have populism back nowadays. I will give you some examples. We show that populism is a companion of politics from ever. I will give you afterwards some examples. I would like to show the first of the image I prepared. Is anyone? One of the reasons why we have the populist national tide nowadays is related to what happened in broad economic system in the last decades. Pay attention, many say it was globalization. No, it happens before the globalization. Globalization is part of the story, is not the story. Let's look to this. What I'm showing you was published a few days ago by at the International Monetary Fund's meeting, where it's very clear. 1970, not after the falling of Soviet Union, as we read every day. The labor share of income downward in advanced, the blue is advanced economy. Look, these are salaries. This is the labor. It's more than half a century of slide. I will give you other numbers which confirms what I'm saying. You have, and from emerging market and developing economies, of course, the statistical data starts with globalization. And once again, you see, and imagine what happened during the financial, famous or unfamous financial crisis, starting in the United States and then spreading around the world at the middle of last decade with the situation you see. The reaction, of course, people go voting, it decides, and these are the people who are voting. People who feel the crisis and is poorer and poorer and poorer. I will show you other numbers, but I wish you imagine a kind of two poles and the wealth which goes to another way, goes to the rich and leaves the poor. We are trying, to become a bit richer than they were before. No, they are forbidden. In this very moment of history, at a certain moment, everything changes. The wealth goes to the rich people. And just to be clear enough, we don't have time to see year per year, the responsibility belongs to left, right, Democrats or Republican. There is no, it's when you say, oh, Trump is doing instead Obama, no, Obama did the same, Clinton did the same, it's evident, it's evident. So this is a trend of our times. At the beginning of 2016, I just make a, so it comes the piper of Hamelin, but he has good reason to be followed by people. At the beginning of last year, 2016, Financial Times published 3 articles signed Martin Wolf. If you pay, you may download from internet. Well, Financial Times is a newspaper of the City of London. It's not a Labour Party daily. And listen the title of those 3 articles. The first, losers are in revolt against the elite. We are at the beginning of 2016. The election of Trump didn't happen still. Second, bring our elite closer to the people. The third, why elites aren't trusted. It's pedagogy. It's a kind of pedagogy Financial Times is offering. And I quote something, losers have votes too. If they feel sufficiently cheated and humiliated, they will vote for Donald Trump, January 2016. Marine Le Pen, Nigel Farage, it's a Brit. There are those, particularly the native working class, who are seduced, not rationality, seduced is passion, affection, by the siren song of politicians who combine the nativism of the hard right, the statism of the hard left, and the authoritarianism of both. Above all, they reject the elite that dominate the economic and cultural lives of their countries. Elites need to work out intelligent responses, rationality. It might already be too late to do so. What else should I say to you, gentlemen and ladies? Everything, in my opinion, is said. By the way, I have still a few minutes to fill it. I have to continue. Oxfam Institute, I recommend to all of you to go through Oxfam Institute. It's a very rich source of information. Well, it says that, now we go to globalization decades, a mere 1% of the Earth populations owns more wealth than other 99% of mankind. So, this is the wealth. 1% takes more than half, and all the others, 9, take the rest, less. And we are surprised that something important is happening in our politics. More will come if it continues like this, much more. The average wealth of this 1% of world population is 2.7 million each. And forget about the others because it's a few dollars. And as I said, it was bipartisan or tripartisan. This was a fact of politicians. The last Oxfam information, which came in January, say that still 80% of the rich, 80, not 80%, the 80%, 80 richest world men still, well, no, let's say the historical curve of that. We have to understand why and when this happens. It was not like this. Everything started with Reaganomics, in fact. Reaganomics and Thatcherism combined made possible that this is the historical trend. So with the new century, from 2000 to 2013, the cumulative wealth of the 80 richest world men still was less than the cumulative wealth of the world poorest 50%. We have 80 persons and the others. From 2002, in 2002 was 750 billions and 750 billion. So they were practically at the same, the 80 and all the rest. But in this year, the poorest starts being accumulate more or less more wealth. Is it the first effect of globalization? Chinese, Indian, so the poorer of the world starts having good results from the globalization. Then, when you have the bubble, the financial crisis, the governments give money to the bank, to the financial institute, and here comes the disaster. They don't put money to rebuild the economy, they put money to make themselves richer. And here we are now. Where we are now, that the group of 80 started increasing itself from 2009, the financial bubble, and thanks to President Obama, who is a Democrat, who is not a populist, who is not a Republican, you know, that's the truth. And speculation and unjustified enrichment come. Europe was put under attack, and populism comes to Europe. China slowed down its development, and you know, that is still there. Russia was back to usual, and you know the situation in Russia, what it is now with populism. In UK, the most paid managers receive now 183 times more than the average salary, etc. I have been said 5 minutes, and then I had to finish. By the way, all those numbers you may have from the chair. If you are interested in that, or you write to me and I will send to you. There is a coefficient called Gini coefficient, which says a lot about it. 0.40 is the good for Gini, which is the distribution of work in the country. US is 0.41, it's not bad. Europe is better. In Scandinavia, the distribution of wealth is more equal. You have 0.3. But you have countries like South Africa and Brazil, which are 0.63, 0.50. So this injustice, let's say, it's spreading everywhere. Now, I said about the populism is an old story. I just recall you some names for the United States, because often this is forgotten. USA is the only country I found in my research having a true populist party, called Populist Party. This is typical. No populist party wants to call itself populist. In the United States, you have that. The Populist Party was active at the end of 19th century. And the history of populism in America is bipartisan, even in the Democratic Party. Franklin Delano Roosevelt had, with General MacArthur, he identified, we wrote today in the article, he identified the head of Populist Party as the worst enemy of America. He was a Democratic senator, together with General MacArthur. You know how problematic was General MacArthur for American history. So imagine Roosevelt, the two biggest danger were one, a Democratic populist leader, and the other General MacArthur, just to understand what we are talking about. You have a Populist Party of Maryland in America. The guy was Hugh Pierce Long Jr., the guy was referring to. You have La Follette Senior progressivism at the beginning of last century. He was candidate to White House in 1924 and received 17% of popular support. You have many. The history of populism in America is very popular. Then you have populism in Thailand with Thaksin Shinawatra. You have, of course, in French, in Hungary, the present-day Prime Minister Viktor Orban can be defined. You have everywhere. The other slides I wish to show before leaving the floor. This is the situation nowadays of populism around the world. I mean, the most important of them. You may notice that none of them is so strong to attack democratic system. or, if you wish, elite system. Marine Le Pen was falling, in fact, because in 2014 at European elections she got 26. A few days ago she only had 21.3. But you may say, so why you talk about zeitgeist if it's not so important? Please check how many votes a certain guy, ridiculous guy, whose name was Adolf Hitler, had when he presented himself at the election. And if you wish, check also what Benito Mussolini had as a result, or what Socialist Party had in the last democratic elections in Italy. Elections are part of the game. For liberals, are very important elections. For other political spectrum are not so. They are used. They may be used, but they are not fundamental to get power. Please remember that. I wish to finish with a proposal. So what I may propose to you, so passionate to listen to me. When the Second Reform Act was approved by the British Parliament in 1867, Robert Lowe, a British statesman, told colleagues, we must educate our masters. In democracy, the masters are people. What he wished to say is, we give now people the vote, we have to educate them, otherwise they will badly use the vote. We are in a university, I mean, to close my remarks with an appeal to education is the minimum I may propose to your attention. I think that some are exploiting nationalists, populists, and people for their own purpose of getting to power. They are not precisely competent or honest persons. I don't want to talk about the biography of those people. It's not the case. But let's say simply, they are not always competent and honest. Instead, we need a responsible, moral, and competent politician class. And unfortunately, we do not have, not even in the democratic spectrum. Let's call it this way. When Europe had to terminate with absolutism, Europe experienced a kind of enlightening absolutism. And it was part of the solution. Maybe we need to have a kind of enlightened populism. At least we may make possible that those electorate comes to more intelligent way of voting. Let's say it this way.
Thank you very much.